sports administration program in 2012, so very recently I was in your all's shoes, looking for jobs, looking at what you want to do in sports. For more background on me, I'm from here in Louisville, and my family has been very involved. They've owned centers and worked with centers here in the city and throughout the country, so bowling is something that for me, I've been involved in my whole life. But in the last couple years since I've graduated, I've had some opportunities. I am now the tournament director for the region's largest amateur tournament, the Louisville Derby Tournament. And I am the assistant manager at Executive Strike and Spare, which is a bowling center just a couple miles away. And my other job is I am the committee chair for the 2015, which is now going to be 2016, Bowling's U.S. Open. We have a committee that runs all of our tournaments, and we have a subcommittee, and I've been put as the chair of the U.S. Open. The committee runs a couple other events. I've got some videos to show you that'll help kind of let you see what's going on. But I'm the youngest person on the committee, probably by twice my age. The next oldest person is probably 50. But I enjoy it. I volunteer a lot of time with bowling throughout the city in other ventures, which I'll explain a little bit about. So when we're going to get started, this is a picture last year at the U.S. Open. I got it on ESPN for about 45 seconds, staring down Pete Weber.
Very intense expression right there.
Yep, I didn't know I was on, but when the match was over, I had about 50 text messages and stuff. It was pretty interesting. To give you the background on the situation, the main players are the BPA, the PBA, and the USBC. They're the big associations within the sport. If you've taken governance, the BPA is a trade association for bowling centers all across America. It's the Bowling Proprietors Association of America. There are small state level and city level associations throughout the country as well. But for the most part, they worry about helping us do a good job with our business. They arrange deals with us through trade, through vendors like Cisco, through other companies that sell products, and we get discounts for being members. We also do things to promote and push bowling. How many people in here like NASCAR? Raise your hand. How many of you all saw the race in Pocono last year? That was the bowling, GoBowling.com U.S. Open, or Pocono 500. That race was sponsored by the BPA. We do things like that to try to get people to go bowling. I'm sure, how many people in here have ever gone bowling? Raise your hand. All right. Bowling is something everybody does. It's probably not something that you think like, you know what, it's Friday night, we're going bowling. Normally it's somebody mentions you like, that sounds like that'd be fun, that's something we want to do. We're always looking for ways to promote it. It's a smaller sport, it's a fun sport, but it is a sport that a lot of people participate in. It is actually the #1 participation sport in America. More people bowl than any other sport. We currently have the USBC, who is our governing body, who makes up the rules, certifies the equipment, and things like that. They have just under 2 million league members, which are sanctioned members of their association. And the PBA is the professional wing. It is the same as the PGA. It's Professional Bowlers Association. They run tournaments throughout the country. They have membership, and they run most of the major tournaments. The USBC, like I said, is the governing body. They run events as well. They sanction things. They create programs to push bowling and all that, just as the USGA does, the USTA. The three have come together to try to do the U.S. Open. Every sport has a U.S. Open. We all know about golf's U.S. Open, about tennis. Bowling's U.S. Open is one of many. If you believe it or not, there's a chess U.S. Open. There is a water polo U.S. Open. There's all kinds of U.S. Opens. This is stuff we had to do for research. Even ping pong has a U.S. Open. The event's history started as a BPA-run event. It was an event we ran for the nation's best bowlers before the professional tour started. As an invitation only, the who's who of bowling. It was called the All-Stars. In 1958, the PBA was founded after we'd run this event for several years, and they started their own tour with their own tournaments separately. We continued to run the All-Star until 1971, when the two sides decided we needed a U.S. Open, just like everybody else. We needed a grand championship. So the 1971, the BPA All-Stars tournament became the U.S. Open. In the mid-90s, as you'll find with all associations when they have different interests and there's lots of money to be involved, the BPA and the USBC and the PBA had a difference of opinion on how things should go, and the events split up. There was a women's event that was held separate from the men's event, and there was a women's tour that was created separate from the men's tour. And until 2011, that ran that way. In 2010, the USBC, who had been given the women's open after the ladies tour had fallen apart, decided to run the women's US Open, and in 2010 they decided to cease it. They were going to cancel the tournament. The BPA stepped in at the last minute and decided to run the event, and with a brand new CEO in charge of the BPA, they arranged to have the 2011 ladies tournament at Cowboy Stadium. That was my first year on the committee, and I actually had taken this class, and about 4 months before we went to Cowboy Stadium, I took the facility class with Colonel Skull, and we did a whole project on Cowboy Stadium. And 6 months later, I was able to go there. It was pretty cool. If you haven't been there, that is a very impressive facility. In 2012, the BPA decided to run the event again, and they ran it in Reno, with the finals taking place on Virginia Street outside. Everything was really interesting. It was cool to see that venue. However, dust in the air got in the lanes and made a big deal out of it, as you know, you're trying to bowl and dust is blowing in your eyes, and it didn't go great, per se. In 2013, because of budgetary issues, the PBA was threatened to maybe not run the US Open anymore. So the two sides came back together, and in 2013 we ran the first ever men's and women's US Open, held at the same place at the same time, everything going on exactly the same. And we actually had the two finalists bowl each other in a battle of the sexes, which is the first time in history that two US Open champions would bowl each other in a match, in any sport. To give you some background, of course, just to explain the pictures, when I was here at U of L, we actually have a bowling team. This is a picture of the bowling team that I was on, and this is Strike Zone, the center in which I work over at Executive. And I have a couple videos which I'm going to show you, which hopefully will give you a little bit of an idea. Another tournament which we run is the International Family Twosome. There's a little bio right here before the championship match of that. We run several tournaments. The hope is to run these events, you create business at centers throughout the country and create excitement about it bowling. This is the men's and women's Battle of the Sexes match, I believe, from last year's U.S. Open.
Contested this week in conjunction with bowling's 2013 U.S. Open was the Cubica AMF International Family Tournament. Since 1976, the International Family Tournament has been run by the BPAA and remains the only national scholarship championship in sports that is offered to a family team. The event features two divisions, a parent youth division for kids 12 and under, and a parent teen division for kids 13 to 18. The teams qualified in local competitions held at participating BPAA centers and advanced to regional and state finals before coming to Holiday Lanes in Columbus for the national finals. This year's national finals featured 39 parent youth teams and 38 parent teen teams representing 28 states. And there you see the parent teen winner, Abby Brown, and Kimberly Hector from North Carolina, and the parent youth champions, Faith Penny and Doug Kinney from Oklahoma. Congratulations to them.
Yeah, it's just a great event that the BPAA and the proprietors put on in conjunction with the men's and women's U.S. Open. Kudos to them for bringing all those great families out to watch some great bowling and to compete themselves.
And now, presented by Brunswick, it's time for the Battle of the Sexes. Wes Malott, the freshly minted U.S. Open men's champion, taking on Liz Johnson. $10,000, winner take all, just to make sure they are interested. And as you mentioned, Randy, not the first meeting between these two, and Wes was not too happy that you brought that up.
Don't let that hug fool you. They do not like each other. Just kidding. They're great friends off the lanes, and you heard what Wes said. no revenge factor. But you know what? There's still another $10,000 up for grabs, and I guarantee you, Liz, she's not going to show any mercy. There's nothing these women out here don't like more than beating up on the guys.
No kidding.
I mean, Liz has done it. Kelly Kulick did it to win a major title, the only woman ever.
Johnson trying to clean up. Her opening phrase.
Now, big advantage for Liz Johnson. They moved over to 9 and 10. Remember the men's finals match was on 11-12, and this pair has been freshly stripped and re-oiled. Let's see if Wes Malott can still hit the pocket at will like he did on 11-12.
Each of these pros has already won $50,000 for the championship. 10,000 more. 10-10.
Those were our two champions from last year, Wes Malott and Liz Johnson. Liz Johnson actually ended up beating him and winning that match. This is footage from the 2011 event. It's a little bit more impressive because this is the event that was held at Cowboy Stadium. That one was just held in Western Bowl, one of the centers we used for the U.S. Open that year.
And here we go. And Leanne Hulse.
Can you make it bigger?
247, where she never missed a pocket. Just saying. And another 10-pin. That's how she started the match with Linda Barnes. That one probably not as solid as some of the others. But you saw what she did, and then Linda Barnes unable to get the 9 she needed for a tie, or the triple, and she needed the 10th for the win to move on to the championship match. It was a troublesome pin for Leanne. She got away with the single pin spare miss. And here's your tournament leader, Kelly Kulick, your defending champion, a 2-time U.S. Women's Open champion. And she took over the lead after 24 games, and it looked like Secretariat. Looked like Michael Johnson in the Olympics when she took off, and just blew everybody away with a 241 average. And sadly, there'll be no $1 million. Ringing 10 for Kelly that time.
As a background to that, there was an insurance policy. If you shot 300 in this match, you would have won $1 million.
A cold beverage of his or
That's
her
what they're
choice.
talking about.
Absolutely. Well, let's go over to Kathy Doran-Lindsay, who's standing by with Linda Barnes. And Kathy, we understand that an interesting development during the course of Linda's run.
Yeah, unfortunately, during the commercial break, Linda felt a pull in her right forearm, although she didn't act like anything.
You've always talked about how the 3-6-10 you can't stand. Now she's got the 9-pin behind that.
Well, this is basically the hardest spare you can leave. It's not a split head or a washout. But Kelly's keys to victory here are just really more of the same. She has completely dominated women's bowling over the last 2 years. She is able to carry through with the same game plan and the same proficiency that she's shown through that time. This is hers to win.
And the keys brought to you by Ebonite International. The same fine folks are bringing you this championship match for $50,000 without interruption. First strike of the match. You know it's going to be a strike when Del Fowler Jr. is standing next to him. He starts nodding his head yes. The second leaves her fingers. He was on that immediately.
The main difference between the two is how it rolled off the end of her hand. The first one she got at the back of it a little bit and it hit flat. That one she got around and it completed the move. It made it all the way back around the corner and rolled through the pins.
Again, Hulsenberg has won major championship trophy, the 1999 USBC Queens. And there's a stop.
All right, and then I will.
standing here with 2012 U.S. Women's Open champion Kelly Kulick, and Kelly, you dominated this event all week, but you did that last year and made it into this this crazy venue at Cowboy Stadium. Didn't perform the way you wanted to. What did you learn from that experience?
My mindset was forget about the negativity, forget about the environment, just bowl the lanes. And it was an advantage sitting back there watching the other matches because it really gave me an idea of what my game plan was going to be to attack the lanes. And I think that actually was an advantage this time.
When you got out here for practice, the wind wasn't blowing as bad, the lanes were fresh. I'm sure you had one idea in your head that completely changed. What did you think after practice?
I thought after practice they started to hook after about 30 minutes, like, okay, it's good, they're going to get deeper, I'm going to have to move left. And then after about another 10 more minutes, they hooked even more, and I was like, oh no. And there was a meeting amongst the ladies whether we wanted to strip and re-oil after every match, and everyone said no, which was a little surprising, but like they said, it's fair playing ground, and whoever adapted the best was going to come out on top, and I played the role of the chameleon tonight.
And when you sat back and watched everybody else struggling on this, how did that affect you? What were you?
As I mentioned, there were some technical difficulties with that event. But that's the pretty much 3-year history to give you an idea of what's been going on. The event that was held in Cowboy Stadium actually set a national record for the largest audience to watch a bowling event. That was the goal. One of the things we were trying to do with that event was to cause a splash and get some attention. The goal overall and what the BPA has charged our committee in regards to this tournament is to conduct a first-class event that is among the greatest challenges in all of bowling while also promoting the sport of bowling to the public. You'll notice when you watch that they didn't strike a lot. You've probably seen some PBA events where they do strike a lot. You know, they've shot several 300s. The U.S. Open, just like in golf, is the hardest of all bowling tournaments, and we do that with the lane conditions. So you see the professional bowlers bowl as bad as they ever bowl. I saw some of them when we were in Columbus here. They shoot like 150 and 60, and it's amazing. You see a guy who can average 230 for a whole weekend to bowl that poorly. These are some more promotional pictures and things that went on from the last couple of years from this year's champions. That was Cowboy Stadium and where the lanes were, and you could actually watch the event on the 40-yard wide TV they had set up in the middle. It was really cool. And then the promotions which they ran for this year's event with Kelly Kulick and Pete Weber, as well as other things. That was a view from Reno. The El Dorado Hotel was right behind us, and they had a parking garage over on the other side that actually filled up with spectators as well. That was Kelly after she won last year, and then the Battle of the Sexes promo they ran. Now to get to the financial part of the event. The way this works is bowlers pay an entry fee to bowl, and we have budgeted 432 entries at $500 each, and that's the revenue in which we would get. The BPA sponsorship, the BPA puts up $150,000 from their money into the event, and we have title sponsors. These are bowling ball manufacturers and other sponsors from the bowling industry. As you'll notice with the last year's event, Lipton Iced Tea was actually the title sponsor. We have presenting sponsors, men's and women's, which were $50,000 each for a total of $100,000, and then associate sponsors, which were $5,000 each, and we had 6 of them. The associate sponsors typically are like the ball companies, and the presenting sponsors are normally Brunswick and AMF, who are the main manufacturers of equipment, lanes, seating, chairs, anything you can imagine being in a bowling center. Now the long part and the depressing part, the expenses. Most of our bowlers pay actually with credit cards, and as you know, when you swipe a credit card, you don't actually get all that money. The credit card companies charge you to swipe those cards. So in credit card fees, we would have estimated $3,500 in fees. For the actual production, buying the time, producing the TV show, it cost $190,000 to produce a TV show on ESPN. The remaining prize fund money is $180,000 that would come out of the bowlers' entries. The office supplies in which it takes, the marketing tools. We typically try to buy ads on ESPN before our show comes on, as well as purchase posters and things in which we send out to our centers. We try, because we have so many members, to use them to activate it as well. Because the #1 person who's going to want to watch a bowling show are league bowlers and people who spend a lot of time in bowling centers. Expense items continued on, postage and freight. When we go to Columbus, the BPA is actually headquartered in Arlington, Texas, right by Dallas New Stadium, as well as Six Flags. And we have to ship all the entries, all the printers, anything we could possibly need, all the score sheets, everything we have to ship to a place like Columbus when we have the event there. So we have postage and freight. We also have to mail confirmation letters back to people. We have to mail stuff throughout the year. Printed materials, that would, like I said, entry forms, printing, promo pieces, that's about $25,000. Travel for the staff and the committee. As a committee member, we typically don't get paid to volunteer to work these events, but they do pay for our travel as well as our hotel room. So what happens is they have to reimburse us that after we're done. They also have staff members that work for the BPA that they send with us to run these events, and they have to pay for them to travel there as well as pay their salaries. Again, TV production costs, $140,000. Our PR firm that's supposed to push this is $4,000. And then we have a fund which is for surprises and things you're not ready for, called the WTF fund. You can imagine what that stands for. Last year we had a mistake where we actually made a mistake in the prize fund and paid someone $3,000 too much money, $3,000 extra. They were pretty excited about that. But things like that is what that money is budgeted for. Last year we did a good job staying pretty reasonably within budget and not losing too much money. In a summary, we create $621,000. We spend $661,500. And our net income is $4,000 loss. When you take into consideration that the BPA also adds $150,000 to the tournament, the actual net loss to the BPA is $190,000. We're looking for ways to not lose $190,000. We're also looking for ways for this to achieve its second part of its goal. We run a very good bowling tournament, the bowlers enjoy it. But the point is, our goal is to get people, besides the 2 million bowlers we have here in the country, to watch the event. And so that when we lose $190,000, we can say, we lost $190,000, but we got so many more people to watch. We got some more people to get activated and to think about bowling, either as a recreation or just something to do on a Friday night. So these are the main questions in which I'm asking you all to help us with. How do we raise the prestige of the event? People watch Golf's US Open and they see Tiger Woods go +6 and they think, wow, that's an amazing event. They see Serena Williams and Roger Federer and them battle in the final matches of their US Opens, and they cause a lot of stir and gets people to think about those sports. Tennis does an excellent job. They actually have sandwiched with their US Open, with their professional players, they have an amateur US Open as well as a handicap US Open. And they actually make the whole week they run all these events a big tennis week. And they go out and teach tennis to people all over the country. They have free classes because they realize that for that week when people are watching the US Open, they have everyone's attention. So they try to maximize it by doing it as much as they can. And while people are thinking tennis, being there to serve them with something to get them involved and get them in the door. Golf has a little bit different way of doing it. They have a qualifier setup, one in which we actually are looking forward to possibly mimicking one day. You have to play in a qualified tournament and win a spot in the US Open, or be a top 50 player in the PGA and get an invitation. So we've actually looked at that as a way to try to grow this event, was limit the number of entries and have qualifiers and try to make, rather than just 1 week a year be the buzz in the bowling community about the US Open, make it several months because of all the qualifying going on. Who got a spot, who didn't get a spot, who's still on the bubble. Our next question is, how do we better promote the sport through the event? Just like I mentioned with tennis, what is anything we can do to try to get people to be excited about bowling? You know, how many people in here, you all raised your hand pretty much saying you've been bowling. How many of you all have ever bowled in the league? Raise your hand. Very few. How many of you all have friends or family members who have bowled in the league? In the last 30 years, league bowling has died. It really, at our peak, we had 9 million league bowlers, and now we're at 2. And we're trying to do something to get people back interested in the sport. Now, there's a lot of issues we have with our league bowling model. For any of you who've taken Mr. Ramsey's recreational class, one of the first things he mentions in it is it can't be too long. 8 to 12 weeks is about the time frame what you're shooting for a recreational sport. we ask a lot of our league bowlers to bowl 33 weeks. And I love bowling as much as anybody, and I hate 33 weeks of bowling. That is too much time. It's getting ready to be nice outside, and I'd rather be outside. You know, that's what we're dealing with. But unfortunately, the industry is full of a lot of mom and pops. And they are in their bowling center, and they've got their four walls, and they think about what happens in their four walls. And they don't pay attention to what's going on outside. And that's one of the reasons why the BPA was so excited to have me speak with you all, is we would love to get more people like you all into the bowling industry. There are jobs, there are lots of things, lots of bowling centers, lots of chains, and it's a very good sports administration job. As a general manager center, I have to manage people, I have to manage inventory, I have to take care of the snack bar, so I have to be aware of how the best procedures of handling food. We have a bar, so I have to have the best procedures on how to serve and not serve people, how to card people. We have lanes, which if you're talking about trying to sell, that's what I have to do. Just like the University of Louisville Athletic Department has to sell seats at the Yum Center, I have lanes. And I try to take groups, I try to come up with promo packages, and I also have my season ticket holders, which are my leagues. And it's you try to maximize and sell as much and fill as much as possible. We do all kinds of things to try to create business. We're running a program this summer called Kids Bowl Free, where we're going to let children under the age of 15 bowl 2 free games every day. And we're going to try to go out to schools and get people to sign up for the program. And we get their information, and we hope that they'll come enough to where that becomes a routine, and then when the summer's over, they'll keep coming. How do we make the event more appealing to potential sponsors outside of the bowling industry? Another big issue we have, if you saw all of our sponsors and all our signage, it's the same people. We keep going to the same well to try to get money. And we have a lot of ball companies, we have a lot of people within our industry who feel we're important enough to spend money on. But how do we get Doritos to be a sponsor? How do we, you see NASCAR, and they've done a phenomenal job of getting people outside of car dealerships and car part manufacturers to sponsor their event. So that's another thing we're trying to do, is get new people involved. Because if a new group gets involved, they will expose us to who they market towards. Are the outside finals productive or counterproductive? As you saw, the last one was inside, and then you saw a little tidbit of what happened with the one we did outside. But there's a lot of purists who say that, bowling happens indoors, we should only bowl these tournaments indoors. We shouldn't do stuff outside. And there's another group of people that say, nobody's watching our TV shows. Why should we keep doing the same thing and expect different results? And there'll be some other questions I'm sure that you all might come up with. In conclusion, first of all, I'd like to thank all you all for your time coming to speak with me. I know that some of you all, this isn't your regular class time, so I do appreciate that. I also want to let you know that there are jobs as well as internships. I have an intern who was in this class last semester, who I spoke with, who I've now hired, and is my intern for this semester, and he'll be getting done here shortly. It's been very well. I had an intern last summer from Morehead State University who helped with us. Anyone who's looking for an internship, please feel free to contact me. We do pay for an internship. I know, because as a SPAD graduate, that is rare, and it sucks. It's not fair. You shouldn't have to really work for free, in my opinion. But we do offer, it's not a bunch, but we do offer a paid internship if anyone's interested. And also, if you're just interested in a part-time job, I have hours in which we're looking for. So if you need to make some extra money, I know most college students are all about making some extra money. It's a good, fun environment. You get to meet people, you get to deal with people, and you get to do something that's pretty fun. You could work at UPS and talk to boxes, but instead you can deal with people. Anybody have any questions? Yes.
To enter the U.S. Open, do you have to be a pro, or do you have to qualify, or what?
The U.S. Open is one of the few events that's open to everyone. You do not have to be a PBA member. We had discussed, like I said, making a qualifier event, but even if we did that, it would still be open to anyone. It is the only real event. When the PBA runs their events, they pretty much put a strict rule that you have to be a member of their association to participate in their events. The only other event that's similar to that is the USBC runs a tournament called the Masters, and they allow anyone who's a USBC bowler to participate. The pro bowlers participate as well. Typically what happens is, because of size of center, we have to limit the number of entries we have, But no, anyone's allowed to enter, and that's why it isn't open. It's supposed to be open to anyone.
I don't know if you covered it before, but is there like a set time season or?
Bowling's peak season is when it's cold outside, because when it's nice outside, everybody goes outside to do stuff. Like if you want to get a lane in February, it is rough, because I've got people who want to bowl. It's amazing because a couple months later in June, you could probably drop a bomb on a bowling alley and kill no one, because that's typically how it goes. But the peak season is pretty much daylight savings. When we lose that hour till we gain it back, when it's cold outside, we rock and roll. And that is the heart of the bowling season, when a lot of tournaments go on. We have discussed, and the date we're aiming to have the next U.S. Open TV finals is in January, the week between the AFC and NFC championship and the Super Bowl. Because that is also when TV ratings are the best, because people are inside watching TV. It's also a big problem that the PBA for the last 10 years has put their TV show on Sundays at the exact same time as the PBA, or as the NFL, and that has led to some of the worst hit ratings in history. But ESPN sells it to them cheap because nobody wants it. But our hope is to land right in the middle there, between those two events, to get away from the NFL but still stay into our peak season. Any other questions?
How many days did you say the actual tournament is?
The tournament normally lasts about 10 days. There's 2 days of practice. We let the bowlers go to the centers, try things out, talk to the ball reps, bowl on the actual conditions, and then there's typically 3 days of qualifying. A fourth day is a cashier's round, so if there's 600 people and 200 are going to win money, we cut to those 200 people, let the people who aren't going to win money go on and go home. And then after that, we start a match play finals where I would bowl you, and if I win, I get 30 bonus pins. And you keep bowling like that for, I believe, 24 games. And then the last thing is a step ladder, which is a creation to get bowling on TV. That's where the last 4 or 5 or 3 bowlers bowl each other in the first bowler gets a bye all the way to the finals, the second bowler's in the semifinals, and you have to climb the step ladder.
But the 24 games before that, they're just playing like kind of like round robin.
You play everybody once, and that way it's supposed to be a fair field. You bowl everybody one time, and you get a match. That's actually pretty interesting to watch because everybody's really polite when they're on TV, but you actually get to see them act like themselves in that part. Some of the guys do not like each other at all, and they're quite interesting to watch them bowl each other. Just like in any other sport, there's people who just don't like each other.
Do you think there will be another event outside, like the arena one?
I hope to be. I push for it because I think, you know, you look at the Super Bowl, and what's one of the big topics of last year's Super Bowl? The facility. Having it in New York, outside, cold. Is there going to be snow? Is there not going to be snow? We have to do something to create a splash. You know, I love bowling, but the finals in a bowling center hasn't created a splash in 20 years. Why is it going to create one now? I think it's really cool, too, because when we were at Cowboy Stadium, you see a facility that's world-renowned, and you're going to go there and have a bowling event, just like I'm sure the Louisville team feels when they go to play the Big East tournament in Madison Square Garden. You're just blown away, and it really sets the tone for this being a championship. I hope to see it happen again.
Okay, what's the average number of participants you have, and do you all have a location in mind of where the U.S. Open is going to be?
We do not have a location in mind at this time. There are several potential locations. One is to do it possibly in Arlington again, and maybe do something else in that area. But what we typically do is we send out forms to all the major cities in America and ask them to make bids on what they want to do, what centers they would have to host the qualifying, what finals venue they might have to do the finals. Last year, until late in the year, we'd actually considered doing the finals at Ohio State Stadium, or the Horseshoe, because we were going to be in Columbus. But budgetary concerns, and then there's always that risk of, what do you do if you set all this up and you build these lanes and then it rains? So because it didn't have any type of cover, we were worried about that. The good thing about going to Reno is it rains like 3 times a year, so you don't really have to worry about that. But that is another risk of doing outside. Louisville had actually bid on the tournament and was hoping to have it in 4th Street with the finals underneath that canopy. Unfortunately, we got down to the last 3 and didn't make it, but maybe next time. But we are looking for any type of suggestion if you think there might be a cool place to have it.
What's the typical budget to rent a place?
To rent a place, that's a hard question to ask because it varies. When we did the Dallas Cowboy Stadium, I don't know what the entire budget was, but we did it on like I think a Tuesday or Thursday night, so that there wasn't huge, the cost went down. Plus because we were in the area, they knew Jerry Jones, and they actually kind of got a better deal on that because he wanted to be a part of breaking the record. Plus, if you notice when they built that, how the two lanes were so far apart from each other, he made a stipulation we couldn't cover the Dallas Cowboy star with the lanes. That had to be seen on TV, was the star. But that's a rough thing. Some cities are willing to do that for free. Some cities are willing to charge it. Depends on the facility and the place. When our bid here in Louisville, 4th Street was interested in doing it, and they were actually going to cover some of the cost of actually building the lanes and that, because that's not free either. That equipment has to come from somewhere, and you have to purchase it and have it built the day of by a crew. But in some cases, like we have the Sports Commission here in Louisville, I'm sure you've heard of them, maybe even served from them in one of your classes. They actually are the ones who we contact with our forms, and they put bids together, and a lot of times they actually get money from the city and the state, because if you get about $500 to come into the city, plus media members and staff, you do stimulate the economy. Those people are going to be here, they're going to eat in the city, they're going to stay in hotel rooms, they're going to go out and try to do stuff when they're not bowling, maybe come and go to Six Flags or something on their days off. Any other questions?
Did you say this is 2016 now?
The hope is to do a qualifying or a promotional program in 2015, but because of the dates, the way they fall, it would actually be January 2016. But the bulk of the tournament would be 2015. But because we picked that date being after January 1st, it would be actually 2016.
What do you think the general hangups are like as far as the decline in participants?
The decline in participation, I think the big thing is 30 weeks. Ask anybody to do 30 weeks. If I told you you had to meet me here every day and I was going to give you $60, you'd miss some days. And you just can't. That's why when you play kickball, you have extra subs on your roster, and because somebody has something that comes up. And we haven't done a good job of that. The other thing is being such a family-run business in so many of these places, because it's just I own this center or I own these two centers. A lot of them don't think big picture, and we don't have a marketing wing to promote bowling as a whole. That's the one thing that all of our acronyms have really failed. We don't have any type of together effort towards marketing. And we think like small businesses, and we don't look at other sports and how they do things and copy it off, because we're bowling and we have sacred cows just like everyone else, that things we don't want to change because we've always done them that way.
We might have a time for one more question. Anybody has a dying question? Okay. Appreciate you coming. Thank you for the presentation.
Thank you all very much.